All right. We are recording. Okay, everyone. Welcome to Operator Rules. A direct, well, there's your problem ripoff brought to you by the People's Commune of Chaotic Trains.
Hell yeah.
My name is David Marks. I am the admin of Train Pictures with Chaotic Auras, and I am
Best
your
meme page on the
host.
internet.
Yeah, the one of the meme pages ever, and I am going to be your host here. And joining us today, if we get off the OBS screen, we got Kaylee with some experience in the railroad industry. We got Comrade Tom, and we have from the other Facebook page, Bonga Pacific Railway, we have Lloyd Bonga himself. So, you guys want to introduce yourselves, show your names off?
Hello, I am Kaylee. I am a railroad conductor. My pronouns are she and they. So yeah.
As I said, I'm David Marks. My pronouns are he, they.
I am Tom, and I am he, they, or bruh.
Also,
I
yikes.
am. Huh?
Oh, also, boo and yikes.
Yes, I will always respond to a bro. And I am just a resident foamer of the PM/CNO variety.
I am Lloyd Bonga Jr. Lloyd Bonga was my father. My pronouns are he, him.
All right. So, we are recording this episode with full knowledge that we have no idea what we're doing. So,
Hell yeah.
we are not prepared. We did not write a script. And we will be re-recording this episode in the future with much more thought, much more care and love, and maybe fewer dick
Probably
jokes.
some research.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But we're talking about the goddamn SD40-2 today. We are talking about America's chosen freight locomotive, and I'm going to drink some Crown Vanilla out of a Penn Central shot glass, just so that I'm
That's a high life.
ready. Yeah, I'm living it right here. Do you know that beers, excuse me, it's only the champagne of beers if it's from the High Life region of Millers. Otherwise, it's just sparkling Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Jesus.
Or piss.
Yeah, what's the difference, right? Okay, so, I guess to start, what is a train, right? It is a metal slinky that occasionally requires a blood sacrifice to keep operating. Burns
That's accurate.
burns fossil fuels, but it burns comparatively less than things like trucks. You can
Cars.
you can move a lot of shit with a train. Part of the ability to do that is having a locomotive. And first we start with the forbidden tea kettles, the steam locomotives back in the 1830s, and as we move further along, steam develops. Get into the 1930s, 40s, 50s, steam starts developing.
Badass.
Yeah, steam starts getting really good, and then diesel technology is very bad, but it's new and exciting. Um, and then in the 1940s, EMD launches their FT series, and this is where I'm going to pass it off to Lloyd Bonga to give us a little bit of a rundown on EMD's market in the 30s. We kind of get started here with the EMD FT, and I'll let Lloyd take it away here and talk to us a little bit about the development.
So EMD actually started off as the Electromotive Corporation, which didn't really have a connection to General Motors. They were bought by General Motors, and General Motors brought in a lot of interesting elements, one of which was styling. One of the things that made the FTs and the F units in general really successful was they looked really pretty. And specifically today, we're going to be talking about the SD40-2, and that all started with the development of the SD series. And to me, it's super interesting to think about where the SD40 was in the market at the time where it was released compared to the original SD series, which started off with the SD7. EMD originally intended them to be basically branch line locomotives. One of the really big problems in the early development of diesel locomotives is most diesels had too high of an axle loading to be in any kind of branch line service. Some of the steam locomotives that were in service, the latest, were in service on these really, really, kind of string line-esque branch lines because the diesels were too heavy. So the idea behind the original SD series locomotives was to add another set of axles to something that resembled a GP7, GP9, so that it could be better on the branch lines. And compare that to the SD40 and then the SD40-2, where these are intended to be high-speed, high-horsepower road locomotives instead of basically the complete opposite, where we started with the SD7 and the SD9.
I forgot I wasn't sharing my screen, so you guys couldn't see. I've been miming along with my mouse with pictures of all the pretty trains we're talking about.
So I'm going to ask. So that really means that although the SD40 is a child of the SD7, SD9 series, you could go so far as to say that is really just a bastard child of the GPs.
The apple certainly falls quite farther than the tree than one would expect.
Well, from this logic, that means that SD90s are just forbidden FTs.
Actually, I wouldn't go that far because, I mean, you're still talking about a wide body shell. So really, if we're going to trace this backwards, it all goes back to the BL2 master race.
Oh,
Jesus
good God.
Christ.
I'm not going to act like I don't love the BL2 or anything. Let's be honest. People call this thing ugly. Look at this.
Make sure you grab a PM one or a CNO one because
Okay.
I think it's the love child of a GP9 in an F unit, and I love it.
Now I'm not gonna lie to you. This guy here. All right, we're getting off topic here. With the way my browser just did me right there.
Episode, but grab one of those good pictures of that.
Yeah, look at that thing. That's a good looking locomotive.
That's
Now,
the big
so
sexy.
just so I can opine on the CNO stuff because this is my area of nerdiness. The really interesting thing about the CNO BL2s is that like half of them get Mars lights, half of them don't. The ones are ordered by the Pierre Marquette have the Mars lights. The ones ordered by the CNO don't. And then see they've got like flying number boards like a goddamn steam locomotive.
I love two things, and it's Mars lights and flying number boards. Those weird Seaboard Airline F7s that got like the high boards, and then they put the dual head. Yeah, man, those things are nice. I'm not gonna look for one, but they're real nice.
Well, and the other thing that's super weird about the BL2s is that the CNO flares the rear number boards. You can kind of see it in the ass end of that locomotive, but like the number boards on the back of the BL2 were pretty much flat, and the CNO angles them to like a 45-degree radius.
Gotta love that. It's probably not going to be an easily accessible picture worth the effort to find right now. You could see how the old ones are there, or the regular ones. But anyway, so yeah,
when we do our BL2 episode, I will dig up my CNO BL2 pictures.
Good. All right, so to swing back, so the BL2, I know a little bit about this. Basically, people realized that maybe switching with a locomotive with a ladder as tall as two of me and probably a third of our penises combined tall is not the easiest thing to switch off of. Nobody likes hanging 7 or 8 feet in the air just to try to make a reverse move. You can't see hand signals from this cab. It's not effective. And you got to think, this is the time before radios, right? So EMD comes up with an idea that didn't sell very well, but it's like, what if we did that, but we cut just a little bit of it so you can see down the back, and we gave someone somewhere to ride, which is not a terrible idea. Another direction that this went, since I have to plug my baby, another solution that unfortunately never took off is the Ingalls 4S.
CNO fiction BL2S.
Yeah, I would love that to be a thing. Yeah, they just slapped a passenger car on the back of one of these locomotives to basically the same effect.
Oh God.
Yeah, so
Locomotive fuck the passenger car.
yeah.
So David, was that the only one that was ever built?
Yep, that is the only one. I used to live down the street
Okay.
from this locomotive, this GP7 here.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that was the only one. It got scrapped. Yeah, so, then you make the transition from the BL2 that I showed a minute ago to some walkways.
Anybody that's watching this in not 2020 or 2021, the reason why GP7 has produced half train pictures and half gas masks is because we are still currently in the plague.
This is true.
For children who watch this, years later, when it is still somehow incredibly culturally relevant and trains still exist. There was this plague. It was awful. We all hated it. But we made some friends through it. And that's the real adventure.
I would just like to point out that I have a GP7 gas mask, and I have somehow never smoked weed out of it.
I'm not sure if I'm proud or disappointed in you on that one.
It should really be both. Probably more on the proud side, considering how long my railroad career was. But
yeah.
Anyways,
Okay,
GP7.
So anyway, back to the SD40-2,
Yeah.
which I know next to nothing about.
That's a good. These XL and N ones here are real good with these goofy angled ditch lights and then the nose lights. Oh, that is a look.
We've got lots to talk about how this locomotive has endured. Because, what is it? Just 2 years ago, both NS and CSX decided instead of buying new locomotives, they were just going to rebuild the SD40s again.
Now, to put things into perspective, right now Canadian National has just started to purge, I think, the last of their rebuilt GP9s. Now, granted, they've been rebuilt 3 or 4 times at this point. Up until basically the time of recording, there are a few GP9s originally built in the early 1950s that do still survive on a Class 1 railroad. The GP40s started coming out in the late 60s. You get the Dash 2 in the early 70s, and the production runs into the 80s, right? So you got to think a locomotive barely 20 years older is still in service in the hundreds on every single Class 1 railroad in the United States.
Well, while we're on the SD topic, BNSF also uses plenty of early generation SD9s originally.
Yes.
In switching service. Those have also been several times, but they're still in service, but they're coming out now.
Yeah, NS had some as well until fairly recently. But it's one thing that these locomotives still endure on short lines. That's to be expected. But to think that the mainline locomotives, some of the longest serving mainline locomotives, and their 20-year-old fathers still are around is just unreal. Because the 50s were 70 years ago, man. The 70s were 50 years ago. The youngest SD40 is what? It's over 40 years old, or just about at it. The youngest SD40s are creeping up on 40 if they're not already there.
Yeah, I'm trying to see when the CNO ordered theirs, but.
Didn't these come out at the same time as the UP Centennials that they made, the DD40AX?
Yeah. Well, the GP, they were in between a bit. The 40s weren't around quite that early. I think the Dash 1, the first versions were starting like 67, 68, somewhere in there.
Yeah, 67.
So. The Centennials were 2 GP35s on the same frame, so the iteration, the 35, the SD35 and GP35 series is when that was coming out, which was not too terribly long before the 40s. So
Gotcha.
there's 4 main versions you got of these SD40s, which is what we are supposed to be talking about. There is the SD38, which is naturally aspirated and makes, I want to say, like 2,500 horsepower. I'm really not sure. This is bad.
Hell yeah, brother.
The SD40 uses, looking at our notes here, a 16645 E3 EMD prime mover producing 3,000 horsepower, weighing in at 360,000 pounds wet. So this is a 16-cylinder prime mover. It is a massive, massive diesel engine block, and it is turbo supercharged. The SD38 just means it's the difference between GP38 and 40. 38 has no turbo, 40 has a turbo. That's the difference. There's the standard SD40. Then there's the Dash 2, and what Dash 2 was a complete electronics upgrade, modernization, and sweep. I mean, you go from very complicated multi-series electrical transitions as the motors wound up through their wound up on voltage, and the Dash 2 was basically a mechanical computer control system that would allow the locomotive to stay producing tractive effort, which is in the end what moves freight. There's not as many cycles cycling the power off the motors. And then you have Dash 3s, which are basically any Dash 2 that's been rebuilt again and upgraded with modern microprocessors. There's multiple programs for this. NS has them. CSX has a ton of them. They're all over the place.
CSX was my favorite, if for nothing else the name. Being a child of the early 2000s, SpongeBob Square Cab is my favorite.
And they're good looking. I don't care what anybody says. That's a good looking fucking locomotive.
They're so ugly, they look beefy.
I disagree, but I respect your opinion.
Well, you're wrong. But anyways.
The People's Party have decided to exile you for having opinions.
So I just want to point out, because I did actually finally go through my book enough. I'm not sure if it was the initial production year, but I can tell you guys that the first run of SD40s that went to the C&O, and the C&O is interesting because they never buy any Dash 2s. Chessie System will pick up some Dash 2s, but they're going to be under the B&O road name instead of the C&O. But they picked up the first order of SD40s in 1969, and let me just say,
nice. All right. So, looking at some stats here, I'm not gonna go into too much crazy stuff like the type of brakes and traction motor. It's got a D77 traction motor, D14 auxiliary generator, AR10 alternator. Some of you guys know that kind of stuff. I don't. I barely know what horns are. I don't remember what time I've gone to bed for the last 3 weeks, and I have no idea what I'm doing tomorrow. So,
cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, well, if only I had that much money.
Right?
Locomotive's 10 foot wide, about 15 and a half feet tall, weighs 360,000 pounds. Standard fuel loading was 3,200 gallons. There's plenty of different fuel tank loadings.
Sand as well.
Yeah, sand. Yeah, 56 cubic feet of sand. So, there is a version of the SD40 that I really like. I don't know if you guys have heard of this or not. It is the SD40A. Illinois Central had them. A couple of them still exist as far as I'm aware, and there's a real good side shot of them I wish I could find. It's not coming straight away. This is an SDP40 frame, which means longer frame equipped with a steam generator. They were used in passenger service at one point. SDP40s were used in passenger service, I should say. These A's were not. So, Illinois Central orders an SD40 that rides on the P40 frame, which is a couple feet longer. They used the extra length to add some ballast, I think, but I know for sure they added a massive fuel tank because they wanted these locomotives running long, spindly branch lines, and they might not have access to fuel for several days when they're doing this. So they need a tank that is massive. I want to say they were in the 5,000 or 6,000 gallon range. They do still exist. They don't have the long porch. It is an SD40. They've been upgraded to Dash 2s, but that's a real cool sub variant, non-dynamic too. And I got to say, there are a few things that I love more than this flat piece right here instead of that.
Yeah, and there's only a few railroads that really order those without the dynamics, because, I mean, these are getting snapped up mainly by Class 1 railroads. And at this, I mean, even in the 70s, you're seeing such a diversity of railroads kind of consolidating. I mean, there's so few people that are like, nah, fuck the dynamics. Also, I hope that we weren't going clean on this, because...
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
But so there's a limited amount of people that don't order them with the dynamics. I think CN may have ordered a couple. I know all of the Grand Trunk Western wanted to get some SD40s, but I don't think they had the cash at the right time. And I know that CN SD40s spent some time on the Grand Trunk system because Grand Trunk was just short power until they got their order of Dash 2s. But their Dash 2s did not come with dynamics either. And then I know the Illinois Central and I think there's one more that ordered without dynamics.
And it would be interesting to do an episode where we looked on like the locomotive acquisition philosophy in different eras of Class 1s. I think that'd make a really cool episode. So
one of the that ordered them without dynos, of course, was Sulon, and they had Dash 2s.
That was it, and I don't know how I missed that with you being on here.
Bayline, the Atlanta and St. Andrews Bay, I want to think their SD40 also did not have dynamics, and I'll be honest, they wouldn't really need them. So I'm just going to I'm using Google here to pull these figures up. You guys can do this. I'm just assuming you're lazy and you want to hear me talk, and or you're some of our people from the pages, especially TPWCA, that maybe don't know a lot about trains.
You're here for the lulz.
Yeah, well, you can learn a little bit. So the original SD40 rode on a shorter frame. I'm just going to breeze over it because there'll be an episode. Shorter frame, had old school electronics. I mean, you're talking early 60s technology here. It's not great. Diesels were literally not even a decade into being fully replaced steam on most railroads. This was revolutionary shit. You know what I'm saying? So you got about 1,300 of these guys produced. You look at the Dash 2s, gets interesting. We got about 4,200. This is the most produced locomotive in the world. They made nothing more. This locomotive was produced in the United States, Canada, and via license all over other countries. Its basic design is in other locomotives all over the country. It is on every Class 1 railroad in the United States. It's on it's on the handful of Class 2 railroads. It is on the vast majority of Genesee and Wyoming properties longer than a couple miles. It is everywhere.
Yeah, and we're talking about a locomotive that's still in use and is already entering preservation. CNO Historical Society got their hands on a beautifully redone SD40 by CSX. I think NS has donated one to somebody.
TVRM, and then the prime mover died after they got it.
Yeah, I mean, that happens.
It does.
But, we're talking about a locomotive that is still working hard and also hardly working. So, I mean, and it's a beautiful locomotive.
When you think of what a train should look like, and if you look at a train in media, on the news and TV shows and anything for the last 50 years, you're going to see two things. You're going to see F units, you're going to see F7s, you're going to see SD40s. It's what you see.
So on this subject of how famous this locomotive is, correct me, because you know what, I don't remember. Isn't Crazy Eights an SD40?
Yes, it was. That is the locomotive that inspired the movie Unstoppable. While hilariously inaccurate, I personally thought it was a good movie, which is apparently a bad take. I don't know.
I need to go back and rewatch that now as a railroader and just, see how it is, honestly.
Yeah. Here's the thing that we have to remember about movies, because we're all train nerds on this chat. And it comes into it for me, too, because... here's the thing. We're all history nerds. If you guys catch us on a non-train day, we're just as easily going to talk about Dub 2 or something else.
I will talk about literally anything if it's old and nobody else likes it.
Yeah, exactly. So, the big thing is that there's a point in movies where it's like, yeah, it might be inaccurate, but it was fun.
And that's what really matters. Is it fun to watch? If it's not fun to watch, what are we doing here? Yeah, I saw a train go by my house earlier. It had, I think 3 wide cabs on the head. It had, I want to say, 5 SD40s or 4, and then 2, I think it was 4 SD40s, 2 switchers, and then an NSGP60. The 40s and the switchers were Savage Mining, freshly repainted. They looked real good.
Oh, yeah, you sent pictures of those.
Cool. Yeah, they looked real good. That was nice. Anyways, so they made a bunch of versions of these locomotives. I'm not going to list them all because I can't. There's versions that have gone down to Brazil, and then they've gotten 8 axles instead of 6 axles, so 4 wheels per truck. trucks are the sets of wheels here on the ends. This is a 6-axle locomotive, these SD40s. There's 3 on each end. These particular ones have a motor on each axle. But then there's versions that have had 2 sets of 2 on each end for narrow gauge stuff in Brazil. There's different special versions made for service in Mexico. The SDP40s, passengers. Amtrak had some passenger versions. There were versions.
Who was the original order of the SDPs for? Didn't Seaboard get some?
Yeah. Well, I know Seaboard had some 35s. I don't think they had any 40s.
GM had
the
some
other thing we should mention is again, because we're going for people who may not have the stupid level of train stuff that we have forced into our own brains.
Right.
Amtrak is created 76,
I think.
No,
71.
71.
Okay.
God, we're professionals.
Yeah, we got this. We're good. Don't trust anything I say.
Maybe it's 73. No, it's got to be 71.
Doesn't matter. Anyways, early 70s.
Whenever the PC took their biggest shit.
Goddamn, Penn Central did not one thing wrong.
Except for lose boxcars and file the bank.
Yeah, Scott's in the background.
Standing still.
Scott's in the background going, that's not true, but okay.
No, seriously, if you guys ever want to know more about the PC,
there's going to be an episode. I'm getting the admins. Yeah, I'm getting the Penn Central guys on here. It's going to be an episode.
But like one of the best videos that's out there, there's actually the video that Penn Central submitted to the federal government because they're like, hey, we need money because we're losing money because we don't have any money. And that's a phenomenal video to watch just because it's like, it's basically PC just recording all these derailments that PC caused, and they just have cameras set up because they know shit's going to derail on their own lines.
Oh, God.
It's my favorite thing, and if I find the video, I'll send it to you guys if you haven't seen it.
I haven't, but okay, SD40s. Anyways, there's the SDPs, which are they're regular SD40s, but they're longer with steam generators, and then there's the SDAs on the same frame. Okay, you have SD40 T's. These are tunnel motors. So, Kaylee, you know about tunnel motors, right?
I know a little bit about tunnel motors. Not enough to give like a whole speech about them, but I know that their exhaust their air intakes, is like located way down there in the back.
Right here, yep.
So that it doesn't get all clogged up in the tunnels.
SP had horrible cleaning and maintenance procedures in the 80s and 90s. They were a very broke railroad. If you look in the background,
the railroads were neglected back then.
You look at it. Well, it was in vogue to just not care. So some Gen X. But you look in the background of this image, and you could probably see why they didn't have any money. Look where they run. So this railroad is very mountainous. They also don't take care of their locomotives, and they blow a lot of oil. And this is pre-environmental regulation, so they blow a lot of smoke anyways. They're running through these long tunnels. All this deferred maintenance is smoking the shit out of the tunnels. Like, you're talking like steam engine level smoke. Crews are like having to carry oxygen masks again. It's a whole thing. And it's choking the locomotives to death and killing them in the middle of the tunnel because they're not getting any clean air. Because the air intakes are usually like up in here somewhere.
You're circling around that box. That box that you were circling around, that's the intake.
Yeah. So now, okay. I forget what this space is called. But this space here's how you can tell that it's a lowered air intake. You see that? You know it's a tunnel motor. So anyways, you also got in Canada GMD, which is basically EMD but nicer and with socialism.
And Maple Leafs and free healthcare.
It's great. We love it. So these are good because they have no dynamics because I said so, and the paint's pretty. These had the what is now standard safety cab. Canada was the first country to say, hey, stop killing your crews, because this was a good cab design in the early 60s. But there was a higher acceptance of workplace death in the 60s. I don't know if you've ever heard of anything called a union, but they're badass. And because of things like that, you get a wide cab that will kill you less. Train crashes tend to kill people. Oh, hey, this is a good version here. This is your Amtrak SDP40F. Has a cowled body. There you go.
We're gonna call that a quote unquote good version. I love that locomotive. Anybody that's ever ran one hates it.
Well, they'll be fine.
Yeah, they derail at high speeds. I think that was because of their steam generator, question mark?
Yeah,
the water sloshed
that's right.
around and caused a lot of this oscillating movement, which caused them to derail.
There'll
Yeah,
be
they
an
did-
episode.
Hmm.
They didn't have baffles in there, and so they like to split rails.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
they really contributed to Amtrak just not having any tolerance for any kind of thing that had more than 4 axles under it. That and the E60 basically just did that in for good.
4-axle power is superior.
Right here, you're looking at an SD40W-2W. Yeah, Crown Royal. You know how it is. Please sponsor me. So yeah, as you see here, different cab, but that is the same thing as that. That is internally a regular old SD40. It just has a different cab on it. This is a major sub variant.
Just put some Play-Doh on the front end.
Yep, this is a major sub variant of these locomotives.
Side note about the Canadian National, Canadian Pacific safety cabs, they actually have coffee makers built into the locomotive as well as microwaves.
That's so nice.
That is so nice. Wouldn't that be nice if that was a standard feature in like all
I
locomotives?
don't know why you guys are like surprised that's so nice. It's Canadian.
That's
it's
fair
going
enough.
Yeah. Well, it's like we need that. Like, why? What are our unions doing? Like, we need that in American locomotives. Like, the hell.
For the record, so that nobody's like, wow, Tom's talking about. Tom lives right across the. Like, I see Canada once a day at the least. So, like, I've got my experience with Canadians.
You see Canada like I see boxes of fried chicken. It's a regular occurrence.
Yeah. No,
Look.
it's regular, again, before the plague. And let me just be super honest to Canadians. You are the nicest people in the world.
Oh my goodness, my fat cat just jumped in my lap. Hello, Chessie. What a good
I
boy.
love you guys. The only thing I have a minor critique on is your driving, and I don't honestly think it's your driving. I think it's that I just drive like an asshole.
This is possible. A thing that did exist. They made B unit SD40s like that. I want to say this was on purpose. They were ordered this way.
Yep.
Without a cab, the BNSF conglomerate, Santa Fe and BN both had a thing for B units a lot longer. There's no benefit to one of these. It's an SD40 that can only be controlled as a booster. It has to be controlled by a locomotive with a cab. You cannot move this thing on its own.
No.
These have oscillator controls?
No, these don't. They're where are you going to put one? It's completely sealed.
Okay, maybe I'm just thinking of like F units.
Yeah,
Okay.
some, not all F units had them.
Okay.
I feel like those would have a use in the modern age as RC units.
Yeah, I mean that would be fine, but there's no point. These are cheaper, and what it is they're ordering these locomotives like 4 at a time. They're like, I'm going to get 2 A's and 2 B's. I'm going to get 4 locomotives for the cost of 3, because I'm going to run them in. I'm going to run them in sets anyways, or it's probably not even that much saving, but it's a way to cheap out. But it's realistically, as cool as they are, this was not something that was going to continue for much longer. It's not something that's going to come back, because in general, like even if you never use the cab, I mean, what if you need to? Like,
yeah, I think
shit. Yeah.
You need. Yeah, look. The problem with this is there's no toilet in it, and if you talk to any railroader, they'll tell you you never shit in the head end.
Never go number 2 and number 1.
Exactly.
I believe the wide body I believe the wide bodies also have toilets.
Because not all locomotives have toilets. Some of them have little porta potty bullshit. They're fucking disgusting. Have you ever taken a shit in the nose of a GP40-2? Because I have.
I haven't taken a shit in a locomotive. All the ones I've worked on, we ripped out the toilet. So
that being said, I have cooked tacos on the exhaust manifold of a GP15T.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
We're gonna
I was
have
going
a
to say
podcast that's going to be just like stuff that we pissed on.
That's every inch of the Northeast Corridor. Next question.
Just hanging off the back of the train, just whipping it out.
I mean, yeah, that's standard procedure. That's what it says to do in G-Core. I was going to say about the B units, I think the Santa Fe's logic behind ordering them, where they're like, hey, we're going to use these on hotshot intermodal trains. We're just going to keep everything tied together. And we're going to build like all these goddamn super hoppers, and we never have to break up our trains anymore. Switching will be gone. We can just fire everybody and run everything off of computers. And then obviously that didn't happen.
That does sound like the railroad.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a great plan.
That's something that they did even with the GP9s. You know, Santa Fe was another big buyer back when they first introduced the hood units, and still for some reason kept the idea of a B unit. Santa Fe had plenty of the early GPB units.
Mm-hmm.
You love to see it. It's kind of like NS and NS Norfolk Southern's makeup railroads. You know, the Southern and the Norfolk Western holding out with the high hoods. This was not necessary.
There's a valid reason for that.
Okay, well, the theory is that you let the rest of the locomotive take the hit.
Yeah.
The problem is you can't see, which means that your conductor also takes a hit when you won't let him use a radio, make him use hand signals because you're like 80 and you've been working since like Trevithick was still alive. And then you couple your fucking conductor up because you couldn't see his hand signals.
Yeah.
That's a deep cut from you.
What's that?
That's a deep cut on the Trevithick thing.
Yeah, you like that, huh? That was good, wasn't it?
So we've talked about probably the majority of variants here, but there's one thing that we have missed that will be unforgivable if we do not go over it, and I will let any of you three guess.
We've already talked about high hood, B unit, SD40-2.
I will give you guys a clue. You boop it.
Boop the snoot. The snoot. Long snoot.
Ah, you're totally right. They are
Boop the snoot.
absolutely the cutest locomotives on the planet. Look at that little nose.
Honestly,
Look at that nose.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite SD40-2. Knowing
so
nothing
cute.
about them, they're my favorite.
They were
Just
geared.
sweet nose.
I believe they were geared for higher speed. SD40s really only could do about 65 under most circumstances. I think they were geared to run 79, which is the FRA limit for how fast a locomotive can go.
Would have been cool if it was 10 miles an hour slower.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, but yes. But basic.
Nice.
I don't know the logic behind why the nose was longer on these locomotives. Basically,
I'm honestly guessing it was just a bigger sand compartment.
it probably was. They're so cute, though. I think that it makes the locomotive look so much better. God, they are so cute.
I think the last blue box locomotive I got was a BNSF SD40-2 Snoot.
Good.
And it was the first Athearn locomotive that came in a blue box that I actually put the handrails on.
Very nice.
Mr. Chessie is still vibing in my lap. What a good boy. He's so fat.
My fat cat, Smokey, will not vibe with me. She'll like sit within petting distance and then she'll walk away as soon as you reach out. It is so annoying.
Like a cat.
Yeah. Nah, Chessie loves me. He'd be up in my lap all the time.
So I'm going to say that for the most half-assed researched, just kind of bouncing off each other, trying to remember everything about the SD40, I think we've covered everything that we can cover pretty much on our maiden voyage on this podcast. Unless anybody else can think of anything. Ooh.
Yeah, pretty. Yeah, I think that that's about an episode. We're 9 minutes over what I was shooting for.
Yeah, it's okay. People will listen to us.
Yeah, it's fine.
So there's a couple things that I wouldn't mind going over just to kind of give people a teaser. We don't know how often these are going to come out. We all have bullshit schedules. That being said, God, we like to talk trains.
Yeah, this is good. I don't care if nobody watches it. I'll just do it just to hang out with you guys.
Yeah. So that being said, there's a couple episodes that we have been talking about that I just want to kind of give a preview on. For me, kind of my passion project for, I guess, are we going to call these seasons? Let's call them seasons. That sounds professional-ish.
Sure.
So, like, I guess in our first season, one of the big ones I would like to do is I think we were talking about a 2 or 3-part series on CNO, Chessie, and then CSX.
That'd be good, yeah.
And actually, we might break that down a little bit further, because CSX is such a major carrier, especially if you're on the eastern seaboard to Midwest, and it's just because it's like all of the major railroads except for the Norfolk system and the Southern system.
No, don't kill yourself. Ha ha, your knowledge of railroad mergers is so big.
Yeah. But basically, so we're gonna. I think we wanted to take a deep dive into some of the CSX origins, and that might start with the CNO and Chessie series.
And then the Seaboard series.
Yeah, because I won't lie, like Seaboard's not something that I know a lot about, but they did so much cool shit.
It's pretty neato, and they look real good. I mean, come on, dude, look at this.
Well, and you know, they're also Seaboard is got the they've definitely got one of the coolest passenger trains that it might get its own podcast episode. We're talking about, of course, the Auto Train.
Oh yeah.
I would love to do a podcast on that because, quite honestly, that would be an interesting one that we can do and just dig into, you know, how it works as a concept and maybe why it didn't catch on nationally.
Yeah, that'd be real good. Anybody got any advertisements? Anything you want to mention before we go? I am directly ripping off Well, There's Your Problem right now.
So I will go out there. I also run a meme page. It is the most underused and niche one. It is the Pure Marquette Railroad Company. So give that a like.
Thomas also paints and sells model trains. He does weathering. We'll link his eBay account in here.
Yes, when I actually get some listed. The other thing is back our Patreon that we don't have yet, so we can argue over what locomotive we're gonna buy.
Oh yeah, that's good. We're gonna buy we're gonna buy an SD40.
Are we though? Because like I saw BL2s for sale.
I thought we were talking about GMD ones.
I'm fine with a GMD one. I'm gonna be honest. That'd be pretty cool.
How about both?
I'm fine with that too.
We're gonna just buy the most obscure ass locomotives. We're gonna have GMD ones and BL2s and whatever the fuck else.
Well, when mine and Northeast Cryptid Removal Organization's OnlyFans takes off, we'll be able to get multiple locomotives. It's fine.
There you go.
God, I gotta get Daddy Necro on here one day. I mean, he doesn't know nothing about trains, but just to have him hang out.
Yeah, we'll do train cryptids. I'm sure there have to be.
There's so many like ghost lights. It'll work.
It's called David.
That's fair enough. Yeah. Okay. So like train pictures with chaotic auras, like Pere Marquette Railroad, like Bonga Pacific. K, you got anything?
I don't have anything to plug. I am once again asking for your financial support in light of me buying a $800 brass train tonight.
That's relatable. Stairs and 4S.
Yeah, Stairs and 4S. Stairs in Southern Pacific T-1.
Very nice.
Oh, you're actually gonna get that?
I bought it, yes.
Oh no.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it looks so awesome. It's going to be so great. I'm just going to be hurting for a while from that. But thanks to the government, I have that money.
Yeah, I spent my government money as irresponsibly as possible, and I bought a Saab with a massive oil leak.
Yeah. I was bidding on a single slide of a Pure Marquette Burke today, and I kept getting outbid. I'm like, fucking try me, dude. I got stimmy money. Let's go.
let's make it hurt.
Let's make it hurt. Let's make them pay.
All right. So
$20, and I'm like, I really don't want this slide for $20, but I'm gonna keep pushing it just to kind of see how far someone's willing to go.
Okay.
Honestly,
so any other advertisements, guys? I got kids. I gotta go.
Oh, that's
honestly,
right.
Yeah, I need to make a Texas Pacific meme page or whatever the hell. That'll happen eventually. We'll see.
Well, you need to do it before the podcast launches because some foamer's going to watch this and do it. So I recommend you do it.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll take care of that. Cool.
Okay.
All right.